Welcome to Spirit Talks, because your spirit talks to you.
Hello and welcome to Spirit Talks. I'm Susie Beiler.
And I'm Maximilliam Haver.
Today's Spirit Talk topic is the feminine and masculine energies.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy.
I wanted to share this topic with our listeners because I think it's important to have an understanding of the difference between feminine and masculine, and the difference of that between sacred masculine and divine feminine, because those energies are all very different. So let's dive in and kind of pick this apart a little bit. What would you say is the difference between sacred masculine and masculine energy?
Well, sacred masculine energy is focused and direct energy, working with the divine aspects. So working with the higher self, following your soul's path, being very direct with your mission here, following those feelings and intuitions, and being very direct on your path, like pushing forward with that direct intention and energy. Masculine, just that varies culture to culture, just the general idea of masculine. It might have certain qualities that reflect certain parts of the divine masculine, such as the direct energy. But then there's also imposed different ideas of what is associated with the identity of masculine. So some different ideas of machismo, large muscles, or someone who's has control or power, or these sorts of things.
Competition.
These sorts of ideas that they impose on top of those other qualities that tend to get convoluted with the ego, with pride, with materialism, with these sorts of things.
So sacred masculine is more when the ego is integrated and not in charge of the masculine energy.
Yeah, with the divine masculine and divine feminine, the ego is more of a servant, one who serves those divine roles. So it's conscious, it's free will, it's by choice, but it is in service to those higher more resonant aspects, because there's understanding of the benefits of that, just even from an ego aspect. If you follow your inner guidance and your growth, you get fulfillment, and fulfillment is that's the best kind of enjoyment you can have. So even from an ego standpoint, it makes sense, even though there might be discomfort along the way and the path might not be entirely clear, because you only sense directly in the moment, and it's dynamic with everything that changes. So
there's also an element to the divine masculine that I sense that I don't sense in the ego masculine, and that is the ability to nourish and nurture. I mean, we often think of that as a feminine quality, but those men that I know who are in their divine masculine have this incredible ability to provide nurturing.
Well, part of that is, I guess it would be almost like a father energy, like a loving father, that sort of energy that's nurturing, and it's masculine. And so, yes, there's a lot of parts that are going to be similar between the divine masculine and divine feminine, because it's simply a feminine take or a masculine take on the divine. That's essentially
it's more balanced than regular masculine or feminine.
And so it's just with the masculine, it's that direct energy, that focused energy, and with the feminine, it's a more eclectic energy, it's a more encompassing energy, it's more wholeness. And so they have different roles and purposes, but they're both in alignment with the soul's path. So,
well, I have quite a bit of experience with this topic in my own life. You could say the pendulum has swung from one extreme and now moving maybe towards the other. Most of my life, I functioned in the masculine. I was very driven, overachieving personality, action taker, always doing, doing, doing. And it was a couple of years ago that I was like, okay, this is a little ridiculous. I'm always taking action and spinning my wheels, and there must be an easier way to do this. Now, I'm a woman. What if I did things or became more of who I actually am and allowed that to express itself? And so I started to explore what it meant to be in the divine feminine. What is this all about? And I changed my clothing, kind of how I dressed. I picked out more, not frilly things, but like things that were more feminine. um, I made conscious intention to slow down and to nurture myself and to provide more space in my life for self-love and self-nourishment activities. And in my business, I said, okay, universe, you're going to do most of the work. I'll show up and I'll take inspired action, but I'm not going to do things just for the sake of doing things. I'm now going to allow you to work on my behalf. And the other thing that I did was I created a container. So in my life, in my business, the whole thing. I don't know how to describe it other than this intention to create a space within my being for receiving and this space within my life. And it started out as this little tiny cauldron or this little tiny container, and then gradually it grew bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's still something that I'm working on, is to allow that container for receiving to grow larger and larger. And it's not just a container for receiving, it's also a container of holding the space of love and compassion for myself and for others, so that if I meet someone who's going through something, I've got this container filled with love and compassion. And if someone needs to feel that, then I have that to offer. And it's a constant filling up because I need a ton of it for myself. And so I'm always doing things to fill up that container for myself. And then it's available for others as well. So that was kind of a lot, but I wanted to share my experience with that to show people that you can shift and you can change and you can become more of who you are. And I feel much more balanced now because when action is called for, I can go into my masculine. And now, because it's more balanced, it's more of a sacred masculine. It's not as much from the ego as I used to be. And so if action is needed, I can pull that out. If waiting and allowing is needed, I can be that and allow that to happen. So it's really fun to see how it's changed my life and changed my business and everything. It's pretty amazing.
Awesome.
I'm curious from a male perspective how you see differences between the divine feminine and just the feminine energy.
So the divine feminine is again in alignment with the soul's path, and its main quality is that container, that encompassing, that wholeness. So it's a very balanced energy that is sort of like touching on all sorts of aspects, but it doesn't have like a focal point that's trying to push, right? That's the main difference between the two energies is the male energy tries to focus energy in a particular direction, and the female energy is very spherical, sort of, you would say. So it just encompasses, right? And you can have a lot of the same qualities in divine feminine and divine masculine. With the masculine, a lot of it is very intentional because, again, the energy is very focused on singular things. So, with the traditional view of feminine, obviously that varies quite a bit in the world, just like the masculine, and changes over time. And so I think it's the same sort of interpretation that there's certain ideas of, receiving in the feminine that are still carried over in the non-divine view, but then there's a lot of cultural ideas imposed on top of it, mostly interacting with appearance and certain roles and that sort of thing. So it's
What about sensuality, sexuality? Like, is that part of. I don't feel like that's so much part of the divine feminine. Well, it is, but it's a purer form. I guess, sometimes I see the feminine and it can be very sexual, very sensual, but it doesn't necessarily have that rounded out, all the qualities of the divine feminine. Is that just my filter, or is that kind of a thing where, we think of feminine as having this sexuality, attractive component, whereas the divine feminine is more pure?
Well, there's a masculine sexuality and a feminine sexuality in the divine. There is that aspect because the sexual energy is a creative energy, and then it's either masculine or feminine depending how those qualities are expressed. And so the non-divine expression of sensuality and sexuality tends to be focused on a type of instant gratification or a type of power or control or expression of validation of self-worth. It's these sorts of ego-based energies that are being attached to the sensuality and sexuality, which takes it out of that divine expression.
Right.
But the divine is purely that creative energy with the heart energy as well coming through that.
Yes.
And so you can you can get a bit convoluted between the two energies. I mean, if you're having both the creative and the sensual and the heart energy, but then you start getting involved with certain ego energies, so it can get a little convoluted if you're not clear on how your energies are connecting.
Right.
Yeah.
You said something that we hadn't brought into the conversation before that I think is really important, the heart energy piece. For me, I think one of the main differences between the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine versus just regular masculine and feminine is that heart energy component. The sacred masculine lives through his heart. The sacred feminine lives through her heart. And yes, there are all these other attributes, but for me, that's one of the main differences that sets them apart. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Well, that's the heart energy is the energy that is the channel for connecting to your divine energy.
Yeah.
So that's essentially part of the definition, is it has to be part of that energy in order to be in that divine connection.
Is there anything else you wanted to say about the sacred feminine, masculine?
I think what most people are working towards in their path, I'm not saying that it's everyone's path, but most people are working towards finding balance between their sacred masculine and sacred feminine, or divine masculine, divine feminine, whichever you call it. And when you find that balance and operate from that balance, the idea is to eventually transcend the feminine and masculine into a unity divinity. Right.
Prime Creator actually mentioned something about that in one of the channelings, didn't he? Where he mentioned that this is kind of where we're going to, is that unity of the divine masculine, feminine. And If you are someone who is wishing to attract a partner into your life, one of the most powerful exercises you can do is to become more of who you already are. So if you are a man and you're primarily in that masculine expression, to really master the art of the sacred masculine expression. And if you're a woman, the same thing. Now, if you're bisexual or gay or, things like that, then we get into nuances, and that's maybe a whole nother conversation. But the idea is to find more of who you are already within yourself so that you can offer that to your partner. And when you find more of who you are, then you do achieve more of that balance, so that when someone does come into your life, you're already more in that balanced state and the relationship is a lot more fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and whenever you're exploring those parts, always remember that you're a soul first and foremost, and the not to have so much focus on your body's one way, so you have to be one way sort of thing. Just recognize that you're a soul, and whatever expression of energy you resonate with, that's what you're resonating with, and move forward with that sort of discovery, and allow yourself to feel whatever it is you feel.
I actually believe that there are some women who are meant to be more in a divine masculine expression, and there are some men who are meant to be more in a divine feminine expression, because that's more inherent to who they are. Mm-hmm. And I actually believe that they are serving to bring more balance with the feminine and masculine on this planet, and that's not an easy role to play. So I thank you if you're one of those people listening to this. Mm-hmm. It's not easy to be a different gender but have, the opposite sex expression. But I do believe that you're serving us to bring more balance onto this planet. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and there's also a rare expression. There's masculine, there's feminine, there's both, and some people have a neutral masculine and neutral feminine.
What's that?
It's a little more abstract. Like a neutral masculine would be, I guess, more of like a very logical sort of energy, and not like that, but still in a resonant energy. It's abstract, and so it's a very rare and uncommon energy. But if that's what you're feeling and that's what you're experiencing, not to judge it.
Do you by any chance have any examples of like some public figure that we can say, oh, that's what he's talking about?
Well, I mean, the best I can think of right now are particular people that have channeled, what are they called? Arcturians? Mm-hmm. Where they're a very logical race, they're a very direct race, they're very androgynous and neutral, but it is a type of masculine energy that is resonant. I can't think of a better example of that as far as like in the human experience, even though there are some people with that expression.
Okay. Well, I'd never heard of it before, so I was just curious if there was more information you could give us about it.
That's the best I can think of at this moment. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. This was a very fascinating discussion. I trust you found it helpful and maybe even enlightening. We'll see you in the next episode.
May you explore your feminine and masculine aspects freely and integrate them with unity.